I'm getting ready to hopefully fix a problem I've had kind of from day one on the car. Not a huge problem, but my electric fan is driving me out of my mind. It's incredibly loud, but it only runs at 100% or 0. So it's either on or off. There's no in between. And I'll move the camera here and show you my setup in a second, but you can get fan controllers. The better ones use a PWM or pulse width modulator, and it will control the fan, and it will do it in such a way that you don't have any bad side effects like buzzing or humming or whatever. So that's what I'm getting ready to do on this. Let me move the camera and show you the current setup, and then I'll explain what I'm going to change, and then we'll listen to the motor running without the fan on, and then I'll let it heat up until the fan kicks on, and you'll hear what I hear every day, and then we'll see what the difference is with the fan controller on there. So let me move the camera. So this is a pretty basic setup as far as the fan. I bought the fan and the radiator together from Engineered Cooling Products, and I think that they make their products mostly for racing vehicles. Like that's probably, I get a sense that that's their main market. But I wanted an aluminum radiator. I wanted one that would fit, right? You know, that was designed for a Mustang, and I wanted it to cool well. As it turns out, it probably cools a little too well, like in the winter. I actually have to cover part of the front of the radiator because I can't get the engine to warm up. You know, it's an aluminum block, so everything about it is trying to cool all the time. But nevertheless, you know, otherwise I like the radiator. It's well made. It's just probably a little overkill for the car. The radiator, I bought this fan with it, and originally there was a fan controller, but again, it just turned on and off. And then the company that makes this, they went away from that. So now it's a pretty standard relay. I've got a relay over here. The power comes off the terminal at the top of the alternator, so it's, you know, really getting power directly from the battery through a fuse to the relay and then to the fan. And the relay is controlled by ignition power and the signal from the sensor, I guess, that's here in the intake. So I've got two of these. I've got this one up here. Actually, I think this one is controlling the fan. It is. So this temperature sending unit right here is controlling the fan. The other one that's in the intake goes to my gauge on the dash. So that's a pretty basic setup. It just, when this thing gets up above whatever, I think it's a 180 degree sensor, so you know, when the temperature gets to like 190 something, it turns on, and then it shuts off when it gets below 180 something or whatever. It pretty much works. It's just loud. So I'm hoping that the product I'm getting ready to put in, I can show you that. This is a product from AutoCool. It's called the HF125. It looks like this. Let me get a little closer. It looks like that. And you know, he's got a bunch of different ones that they make and sell. This thing's made in America. Seems to be really well built, has a lot of good reviews, and this one is probably a little more than I need for this car, but this particular one is a 7,000 hertz pulse width modulator, so the higher frequency supposedly solves any sort of buzzing you might have with your fan or whatever, which apparently is a potential risk when you're putting these things on there. But I'm going to try it and see how it works. It actually fits right in here. I've got a big flat spot, got a couple wires in the way, but once they're out of the way, it'll bolt right in here, which is perfect location. It's got a, pretty big terminals here for the fan and the ground, and then a bunch of smaller terminals for the battery, an ignition source, like a keyed power, ground, couple sensor locations. It's got a place to plug in for the air conditioner, so I don't know, I guess if you have a trinary switch or you can tap into the AC system and tie that into here, so when your AC comes on, it turns on the fan. And then there's a fail-safe right here. You could put a switch in the car. If the thing just doesn't turn on for some reason, you hit that fail-safe switch and it will turn on. So we'll get into the wiring of it in a little bit, but first we're going to run the test on what it sounds like now and what it sounds like with the fan running. So I'm going to move the camera back to the front. First thing on the list is to drain the coolant. I'm going to do that here in a second. And then I've got to put this in. This is going to go right in here. I'm going to take out this stainless steel pipe that I made, and I'm going to cut some length off of it and insert this. And I've got a piece of whatever, 1 3/4 diameter of this type of hose to join these two back together. So this will go in there, and then a piece of hose on the other end connecting back to this, the cut down version of it. That's the sensor that this thing operates using. And it's important to remember that this thing is measuring or just controlling the temperature of the water in the radiator, not really anything beyond that. So it's just going to monitor the water at the very bottom of the radiator. That's the water that's going back into the engine. And you know, if it needs to be warmer, it's going to slow down the fans. If it needs to be cooler, it's going to speed up the fans. It's hopefully as simple as that. So I'm going to get to draining this thing. Just open up that thing and then put the radiator cap off. Now it's free flowing. Coolant looks great. Been in there for about 4,000 miles, so should look pretty good. While that's happening, I'm going to go disconnect the battery. Now on my car, I've got a good place to mount this. It's right in here. Got a couple things that might be in the way. I don't know, maybe not. Just stick it in there and see. Oh yeah, it fits perfectly. I'm serious, I'm not even cut loose the wire ties. Start spreading all this stuff apart. Alright, so here's the old relay. This is the fan wire. This is the sensor wire, so this wire must be switched power from the ignition. Let's get rid of this relay socket. Or maybe keep the relay. I got these two oil lines for my remote oil filter that come up here nice and gently, but they're gonna not really be in the way, but they're gonna kind of rub up on the front of the thing. So I'm gonna see if I can kind of wire tie them out of the way. You close the radiator.
Or forget.
And I reuse my antifreeze, on something like this. It hasn't been long enough, so when I put it back in, I run it through a filter like a paint filter. And it's nice and clean and good as new. investigation here to figure out what a wire is. So I already tied into my AC system. I must have done it when I was doing installing the wiring for the original controller for this, which has been a long time. But basically I'm tied into the power on the AC compressor, and when the AC compressor is energized, this wire is energized, so it's going to tie into the new controller, and that'll automatically kick on the fan. Alright, so the only other wire I need to sort out is where this stupid thing came from. I feel like it was a ground that I broke loose or something. It's labeled. Nice thing about Ron Francis, all these wires are labeled. Doesn't mean you can read it. I have to go further down the wire to find exactly what it is. They're labeled every so often. Fortunately, maybe not often enough. So it's a fan ground. It was used before, possibly, but I don't use the computer or any of that to control the fan. It's all standalone, so this wire is not needed. I'm not going to remove it, but I'm not going to remove it from the bundle, but I'm also not going to use it. Okay, so back to these two hoses. Can get them out of the way. So I just took a little flat black Rust-Oleum and sealed up those holes I just made. A wire tie is going to go through there to hold those lines out of the way. And instead of spray paint in there, I just sprayed the tip of a disposable brush. So now, ready to put the wire ties. Now I'm going to mount this, and I'm going to take these two supply terminal ends off. One's for the fan and one's for the ground, and just set them aside. Got some small stainless steel screws. They're number 8s. And hopefully it'll do the trick. There's 2. Next 2 are going to be a little tougher. I'm going to have to mark them and then move the thing and drill them.